Welcome, everyone. I am Dr. Dream, and you are here for the It's All Good show. And this is another in my series of psychedelics as medicine. And my guest today has been a friend of mine for over 3 decades. Uh, and she's always been an amazing, incredible energy. What possibly impresses me the most looking back over more than 30 years is that her focus and her dedication and where it has taken her. And so, without any further introduction, really, I just want to welcome Claudia Costa to the It's All Good show. Welcome, Claudia.
Thank you, Mark. It's good to see you again. I really appreciate you keeping me in mind for this really important series that you're doing. So thank you for including me.
It's particularly exciting because I've focused on ketamine therapy, I've focused on psilocybin therapy. We've had a lawyer out of the UK that talked about what's going on in different parts of the world. But a piece that's been missing is the piece that you are so connected with, and that is plant medicines, plant teachers directly from the indigenous peoples. And so before we dive into everything, South American, Brazil, and all of that, give us a little bit of your background and why you get to talk to us about this today.
Uh, yeah, great. Well, I was born in Rome, in Italy. Um, so my grandparents are from the south and the north. So almost like a mixed marriage. And I work with some of the shamanic music elements, such as tarantella, tamorriata, a lot of things that are used through my teacher, Alessandra Belloni, who's an incredible ethnomusicologist, apart from musician and person, based out of New Jersey. And so, yeah, I've been apprenticing with her since 2012. So she helped me bring my roots to light. She helped bring me to my own like Southern Italian roots and work with the musical element, which is interesting. And then through my Colombian side, my mother's from Colombia. Obviously, we have Spaniard and indigenous, the Quimbaya, which were a tribe in the Quindío area, who are no longer a unified force, but there are descendants, the Pijao and Embera. So I've been reconnecting with those roots through visiting my family in Colombia, through visiting other tribes in Putumayo. I've had the honor of sitting with Taita Kerubin of the Kofan and his sister, who's the first indigenous Maima, so female Taita, from that tribe, the Kofan. And eventually those things led me through the work I do with the Kambo, which is called Kapu, um, to the Yawanawa in Brazil. Um, in 2019, I went for the inauguration of Sacred Village, which is the village where Chief Nishiwaka, who's the main chief, and there's about roughly 10 villages with a few little offshoots. The Yawanawa were the first in the demarcação, which is when they were allotting pieces of land back in the 70s to different tribes. The government did that, and it's one case of government interference being a good thing, because it gave each tribe a allotted piece of land, and so it lessened the tribal wars and managed to give them protection against mining and logging industry. So, obviously the uncontacted nomadic tribes were not as lucky, but the Yawanawa were. They got I believe it's around 60,000 hectares, which is roughly 120,000 acres, if I'm not mistaken. And they're keeping this area sacred, and they are also the first tribe to have women chiefs. Putani is the wife of Nishiwaka. The tribe was challenged in the days of missionaries coming. They actually had a good rapport with the rubber tappers, which is quite rare, and why I think they're so open to outsiders coming, because their first contact was actually amicable. They brought a deer to these people who were starving, who were there tapping rubber, and through circumstance, long story short, the rubber tapper, the leader of that expedition, became the godfather of the now chief's grandfather. So they actually became friends, and the Yawanawa taught them how to hunt, and in exchange, they gave them guns. And so, in a good way, they managed to keep still their traditional ways of hunting. And that's what I like about them is they walk in both worlds. They're able to keep traditions while still looking towards the future. And Chief Nishiwaka and Putani have four children together, and they're the leaders of Sacred Village. And I also work with Iskukwa, who's Chief Nishiwaka's older son. Um, Chief Nishiwaka has 36 kids, actually, 18 male, 18 female. And Iskukwa is one of his older sons, and he is chief of Nova Esperanza Village, which means good hope, Good Hope Village, which is about 7 hour boat ride. So though I started with Sacred Village and their basically inauguration back in 2019, I connected with Nainoa, who's my combo teacher and brother-in-law of Iskunkwa and nephew of Chief Nishiwaka, and humbly asked permission to work with him. So I started spending more time in Nova Esperanza, which is kind of like the Yawanawa hood. There's over 300 people who live there. It's the biggest village. It's where the elders are who know about the herbs and the different, old ways to sing the songs. And they were definitely much more, the infrastructure needed some work, and now they've finally gotten a lot of help from outsiders. Thank you to all the people who helped to contribute to our fundraisers and other fundraisers. And now they're having retreats. They build the Iskuvakehuhu Center, which is a ceremony center, a school, and where people go do their dietas, which I embarked on, but we'll get into that in a little bit. And so, yeah, that's basically my background. Also involved with the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, which is Alex and Allison Gray's gallery, upstate New York. Peripherally involved now, but before I was gallery manager and did events. I hope to do that again and work with different indigenous elders, such as Modesto Rivera, who's also known as Temai, and he's Maracame, which is a peyote, those who hold the lineage of the initiatory rites of passage of peyote uh, medicine men, and through his mother and father, he received that lineage, which is rare to have it from both sides. And through selling his art and doing events, we've managed to raise funds to help reclaim some land that was threatened by silver mining industry. And that's basically the gist of it for now. But yeah, I'm honored to be part of those many different traditions, and even as an outsider, feeling very embraced and adopted into specifically the Yawanawa tribe, and now the Widarika as well through Modesto.
You have brought up so much that I want to ask questions about and everything else. I hardly know where to start. Um, wow, I really don't know where to start. There's just so much here. I guess the first thing is, I know that you are one of the medicines that you are very well versed in. You've already mentioned here is combo. And
Hmm.
so for the people that just aren't aware of what that is, give us an overview of what it is and its uses and benefits.
Sure. I'll start with the Latin name of the frog is Philomedusa bicolore. It's a Amazon tree frog, green with beige on its underbelly. Uh, in both Peru and Brazil, there are a few different tribes that work with it. From what I gather, some say it's the Matzes in Peru. They're not geographically that distant from the Kamanawa, which are also known as Katukina, and they're a cousin tribe of the Yawanawa. Chief Nishiwaka is one quarter Katukina through his grandmother. So they're two of the tribes that work with it, as well as the Yawanawa, of course, and the Hunikuan, also known as Kashinawa, the people of the bat. Yawanawa are the people of the wild boar, and Kamanawa are a little red cat that no longer exists. That's been extinct since. But anyway, the Kapu, as it's called in Brazil, and I believe in Peru, I'm not familiar as much with the Peruvian tradition, more through secondhand experience, is called Dokiet. Over there, they call it sapo, which is kind of a misnomer. In Peru, they call it sapo, which really means toad. But actually, it was in the time when the Spaniards were coming, and so there was a sort of miscommunication there. But there's a book written about the subject on the Peruvian tradition called Sapo in My Soul, where Peter Gorman, who was the first person to in recorded history, bring it over from South America in around 1984. He was working for High Times and he was doing a article on something called Nunu, which is a snuff made of mosses and different plants. He went over there doing an article for High Times. To make a really long story short, he saw these little sticks drying by the fire, and asked what they were. And before he even knew it, they were like burning him and putting it on his skin. And it's applied through little burns on the skin, very superficial, either on usually this part of the arm or the upper arm, sometimes in the ankles and other parts of the body, but those are the main areas. And in his case, I believe they gave it to him on his upper arm. He was sweating, vomiting, fell on the floor, like, what the heck is going on? So he understood what it was. That's one way to explain it, I guess. And went back to, I believe he was living in New York at the time, and noticed through medical tests he had really high blood pressure before, that his blood pressure had drastically gone down. So that's one of the many things that it's used for in terms of physically. I know he was also responsible for sending two frogs to a professor named, he's from the University of Rome, Vittorio Erspemer, who since 1948 had been theorizing that a lot of medicine would come from Philomedusa bicolore, and he studied different animal venoms and substances. So to be clear, Cambo is often called frog venom, but it's actually more of a glandular secretion. It's not really a venom, would be like something that comes out of the fangs of snakes and can kill. This is a more of a paralyzing substance. It can, when prey, when a predator tries to eat the combo frog, it would just spit it out and in some cases kind of freeze. So I think that's where the Medusa part of its name comes from, I'm guessing. But so Dr. Vittorio Erspemer back in 1948 had broken down the nine main peptides and a lot of other peptides that are part of this healing substance. Um, Called it like a perfect chemical cocktail, for fighting cancer, fighting dementia, helping reset the neural pathways, stuff to do with blood pressure, fertility, and many, many other things, laziness. What it's used for in the jungle, though, once I started going in 2019 and talking to Nainoa, I noticed they were less concerned with the physical stuff, maybe for malaria prevention. They would start giving it to, before they had the malaria clinics, they would give it to babies because, well, toddlers around 1 or 2 years old, they would just give one or two little dots on the foot because it's further away and it would take a while. So the child didn't really usually have a huge, strong process, but it's sort of the Amazon vaccine, they called it. It was something that made your immune system stronger. So I noticed malaria was the main physical thing it was used for, but it was energetically, it's something that's given to people who can't find love or like aren't the best hunters to change your luck because they believe there's something called panema that's like stuck energy or kind of bad luck that's inside and the combo gets it out and it helps with fearlessness. So a lot of times when people are having like fear of going into the jungle or anxiety, which a lot of people have actually, they give you combo before you go in the jungle to build up your immunity. Also during COVID, they were giving it a lot to help prevent it, or for people who'd had symptoms or even had the COVID vaccine and had like secondhand effects from it after a couple of weeks. You didn't want to give it right away, but people started getting combo a lot. That was actually my busiest time, and then that's when I started talking to Chief Nishiwaka. I went back and I said, look, there's a lot of people misusing. They're giving combo over the heart or doing different things that, mixing it with bufo, doing different things. He was holding his head like, Deus, Deus, and I was like, I don't want to just learn this for my own selfish purposes. Like, I'm really just want to teach people more about it. And he agreed to letting me work with 901. He said, you have to follow everything to the T. So how I work with it is we do something called kaisuma, which is yucca water, and follow a strict 2 week dieta after the first application. Some people want to work with 3 combo applications in 1 moon cycle, in which case the dieta gets extended if you do it twice to 20 days, 3 times 30 days. And it's just a strict dieta with no sugar, no fruit. There's some exceptions with tart fruits, but that's a sacrifice. So apart from the physiological lack of something feeding bacteria and the dopamine release and all that, it's really mostly because you're giving up something that is pleasurable. You give up sex, you give up a lot of things that would otherwise be considered pleasurable, and so I work in that way. But yeah, mainly combos used against laziness, panema. When they say someone is like a sloth, not moving fast enough or has bad luck, that's how it's used in the village. So yeah, and against other diseases that have to do with the immune system as well.
Now, have you personally gotten the combo out of the frogs?
I've watched it happen, but no, I'm waiting to go back. Hopefully end of this year. I haven't really like done that part of it, which is something it's kind of like I'm waiting for that special moment. And I've seen like a lot of people who've worked with it. I was going to, but in Peru, I had an opportunity and I found out they tie them up and I didn't want to do it that way. So then when I started working with Yawanawa, 901, my teacher keeps saying like, just come during rainy season, and last year it was crazy. There were like super floods and stuff. So I ended up coming a little after. And so no, it hasn't quite aligned yet. I'm getting there. But I have seen a lot of like people who have worked with it in terms of like calling them, and people I've heard the secondhand experience. I've learned the frog calls and stuff like that, but no, we're getting there. Yeah, I know that the Yawanawa, part of why I work with them is they don't tie the frog up and they re-release it immediately. And I do know that there's people who prefer to harvest it at night. That seems to be more a Peru thing. But in the Yawanawa traditions, I think the Kamanawa as well, maybe even the Hunikuan, they harvest it right at the break of dawn. And though people say the frogs are traumatized and stuff, from the videos I've seen and the stories I've heard, they don't seem to be at all affected either way. You just kind of put them back on the tree where you found them or let them crawl away. They don't hop, they crawl. And the glands are here and underneath. Um, so there's actually a saying in Spanish that sana que sana culito rana. Si no sana hoy, sanará mañana, which means heal, heal, little frog butt. If you don't heal today, you'll heal tomorrow. I'm convinced that comes from combo. That's just my theory, but because one of the areas where you get it, you scrape kind of like the buttocks and over here on the shoulders. And the stronger medicine comes from here, and the milder medicine from underneath. And then female frogs and male frogs have a different sort of intensity. I'm not going to say one's stronger than the other, but they're just different. And I've received from both. Baby frogs are the strongest, like most baby animals. That's more reserved for the pages and the more initiated people. And and then when you get it directly from the frog, which I have yet to do, but people I know who have, it's like really, really strong, and most people faint or can't get up for a few minutes and have really strong processes. But how we receive it is usually just it's on a stick, and you rehydrate it and you sit next to the river, and they apply it to some part of your arm, and you purge or have your process there. If you got to poop, you go to the banana trees and fertilize them. And then afterwards, you go in the river to get the medicine off. If people have really strong processes, generally my teacher kind of lets everyone be, but there's cases where one time I was having a hard time purging and he like wet my hands and did something. So he'll step in for a second, then give you your space again. And yeah, as soon as he wet my hands, I started purging. And then there's cases where people faint or have really strong processes, and it's like he's feeling that something's happening, and he does what's called a vakush, which I don't know if you're aware, but the Avatar movie was partially based on the Yawanawa. And in the second Avatar movie, they do this kind of like, blowing thing. That's called the vakush. So they come and they kind of blow their magic on you and do a healing on an energetic level. So yeah, that's how I've worked with it. Is just sitting next to the river, receiving it. I'm hoping to meet the frog and do the seer if all goes well. I'll keep you posted.
Sounds amazing. Now, let me ask. I know when I researched the Bufo alv the
All
Bufo
very
toad Alvarius in Mexico, that the popularity of that medicine was creating an issue for the frog or the toad population.
yeah.
As combo, and now when I first heard about it was from you years ago, and now I know other facilitators and this and that, so it's really proliferating into, I wouldn't say mainstream yet, but it's on the outskirts. Is that creating any issues for the frog population?
Well, the frog itself uh, regenerates the secretion monthly, and ethical harvesters of the medicine. I have a friend who's married to a Bora woman, and I follow his podcasts, and he says that you can really tell from the shade of green, how often they've been harvested. And you can um, harvest accordingly. But he started these like reservoir sort of areas where I think the only time they're vulnerable to predators is when they're tadpoles. So if anything, I have to say I've seen people more proliferate and give sanctuaries to these frogs, and because they're re-released immediately, and it's considered really bad luck to either keep them captive or um, try to kill them or harm them in any way, then because of that, it's basically, I have not seen that. And I've asked a lot about that because of exactly what you're saying. It's starting to become more popular. I have seen more of a problem in terms of people not doing things traditionally, more concerned with the safety of the medicine. Some people gave themselves combo with no one in the room, laid down, vomited on themselves, passed away, and then it endangers this medicine. It's now illegal in Chile and in Australia. And in Brazil, it's legal, but if I'm not mistaken, you have to go to the Amazon to receive it. So, because the people who passed away, one was Chilean and one was Australian, we've had issues with safety more than, safety of the people receiving combo and lack of knowledge about the traditional way, which is very prevalent. I see people giving combo and then offering people to eat all fruit afterwards and things like that. And even though they're minor and it's not like anyone's dying from it, it's not the way at least the Yawanawa do it. And from to some extent, even in Peru, they have specific dietas for people who are trying to get pregnant, in which case they don't withhold the sex and things like that. So they might adjust them to you. But no, I haven't seen any less frog population, and you do hear them in the background, and they're quite loud. I do believe that so far Combo is more respected than Bufo. I know Bufo doesn't have as much of a tradition. Some say the Yaqui and the Seti worked with it, but I feel that the application of today's use of it is more new. Like you're using a torch lighter and a glass pipe, and I don't see how that could have been done in the past. So I think more things are being made up with Bufo. And though there's unethical harvesting, from what I understand, with Bufo alvarius, it's a lot more to do with there's a lot more cars and just urban growth that's affecting them. So yeah, I know there are people unethically harvesting them. I've seen videos of people putting them in garbage bags. And sure, they might re-release them, but maybe a few die, in the process. And then there's people who are very careful of how they. So I think it's like everything. You just, unfortunately with Bufo, it has a lot to do with urban development as well as unethical harvesting. But with Combo, at least where I go, there's a huge government control of the area. There's still some illegal mining and things like that, but the Combo frog itself seems uh, quite prolific.
So tell me, are there any specific laws in the United States about combo? I know, well, I don't know.
No, there isn't any restriction. Someone was saying that the main thing that might be questionable is just the burning of the skin, which some people talk about like getting a branding license just because you're piercing a skin, and so like, but not in terms of the combo itself. There was a case at a place called Soul Quest, which thank goodness has closed since. It was in Orlando, and kind of hired a lot of the, you know, I learned to be a shaman in a weekend kind of people, and had a billboard on the side of the road, and that said ayahuasca in big letters, and we were all cringing, and we just knew something bad was going to happen. And they're even featured in a documentary called Unwell. There's an ayahuasca episode. They were still open when that happened, and that was actually soon after someone died from combo there. The few deaths that haven't been because of people vomiting on themselves or drug interactions have usually been because the person consumes too much water. So there's hypnothermia, I believe it's called, when your brain swells and you have too much water in your system, and somehow people mix up the fact that you got to drink 2 liters and they'll drink 2 gallons. I've heard this happen numerous times. So they desalinate their system, and it's quite dangerous. So I've had actually people show up, and I prefer people to drink the now kaisuma, which is the yucca water I prepare at my house. And I'll have people show up, oh, I drank a gallon of water already. I'm like, you have to go back home and we have to do this another day, because someone died at Soul Quest because of that. He was young, and there were no legal repercussions, but the place did close down, and it put combo kind of like on the radar. So we were all just cringing, waiting to see. But they proved that it was too much water and not the combo. And the combo will trigger something, obviously, but there's been cases of people on certain medications, or, the too much water, or the laying down when you vomit and not having the right training. And so, yeah, that's basically the main thing that's happening with it in the US. It is legal, however. So, thank goodness. Let's hope we can keep it that way.
Right. Now, it seems like you have had extraordinary access to the tribes and these people. is
Mhm.
that common, or how has it worked for you? Because I mean, it just sounds amazing what you've been able to accomplish and the access that you've had.
Well, I've been to some degree blessed by tremendous freedom. I don't have kids or pets or, so I'm able to travel. That's one thing. I speak Spanish. Now I speak Portuguese, and that's another thing. But actually, it is very accessible now. A lot of the villages are opening up for people to come and do dietas. I actually am planning an event end of this year to bring people. And those who can't make it to the Amazon, usually I have my events just outside Sao Paulo, still in the country, like an hour outside, in these different eco villages that are, little mud houses, and indigenous elders from all over come, not just South America, from Africa and parts of North America. So it's really cool communities that are happening. And I'm blessed that I can travel 3 or 4 or 5 days to the jungle and spend a month or two there, do my dietas, and come back. But now, at least in the last 5 years, I've noticed after COVID, a lot of tribes have noticed that people want this knowledge, and not only are traveling and coming here, but opening up their doors for people to go there. And like I said, you don't have to go to the deep jungle. There's great medicine communities like Akasha right outside Rio de Janeiro, where Chief Nishiwaka and Iskukwa and different people do retreats, and other places as well. And if you do want to go to the jungle and experience, and I do recommend people do go to the source of things. I'm also hopefully planning a retreat in Birikuta in the desert, where, here peyote's very limited, and the Native American church people rightfully don't necessarily want a lot of outsiders. But in Birikuta, there's a little more abundance. They harvest it ethically, they cut it a certain way, and it grows more prolifically. And because they were able to fight off the silver mining and they got their land, they're privately buying the land thanks to them being able to do events and travel abroad and sell their art. So I'm seeing a lot of reciprocity of people who come to the source and want to give back. And yeah, I think it is more accessible than we think. And I know that it is. And I'm hoping to be one of the people, I am one of the people that's helping make that happen, along with many others that are bringing people to the source and or the city nearby, for those who can't take a couple weeks off, who might just have 10 days or a week. So yeah, it is accessible.
Excellent. You sent us a link to a documentary, a very interesting documentary on YouTube about the tribe and whatnot. And there were maybe two sentences of language translated in the caption in the whole 42-minute documentary. But I take it that what they were drinking in ceremony was ayahuasca. Am I correct that another name for it there is uni?
Uni, that's it. Yeah, that's what they call ayahuasca, and not just the Yawanawa, but the Kamanawa, Hunikuan, and even the Shipibo, who have a similar language. They're all under the Pano, which is the sort of the root language. They call it Uni in those tribes.
Now, it was fascinating to watch. There were um, toddlers drinking it.
Mhm.
And is it the whole village that goes into ceremony, or is it just those that are called for it? How does that work? I've gone down to Peru back in 1994 into the jungle and did ceremony, and it was fascinating. I did it once in the United States with the Santa Daime when they were traveling through. I didn't like that at all.
Mhm.
And I've been invited many times to do it in the United States, and I've said no, if I do ayahuasca again, it will be down in Peru or Brazil, but I'm not interested in doing it in the United States. So give me an idea of how it works in the village. It seemed like everybody was doing it, like all the
Yeah,
cool kids. No.
it's open to everyone, including the children. And in fact, they say that's why. I've noticed in indigenous culture, not just with medicine, but with everything, the kids are part of everything. If you're out harvesting vegetables, the kids are there picking too. If you're out hunting, they're going to come hunting and fishing by the time they're walking, and they're holding spears at 4 or 5 years old. And yeah, most of the medicines, like I said, Cambo, they started giving it to toddlers, Uni as well. I see the children be very evolved, and it's sort of like us with wine in Italy. Like little kids drink wine in Italy, and it's not abused, and they're not drinking as much as the adults per se. I mean, some kids do, but the chief's son actually he loves copious amounts of uni, but generally, most of them just have a little bit. And if they feel called, and one thing I've noticed in indigenous communities is you don't push it. You don't ask the kid, hey, come to ceremony. But if they're just there and coming and open to it, then they're welcome to partake. And then you're there sharing this moment with your child. And it's beautiful because you see how they smudge, and they teach the kids how to smudge while they're doing the medicine. They're learning the songs and the dances. And one of the main differences, I haven't sat with Peruvian medicine, but I have sat in Colombia, and it's a lot of shadow work, and I love it. People are over you with the white and you praying, but there's a lot of stillness and silence. But in Brazil, it's just like holding hands. At least with the Yawanawa, you're dancing, you're singing, and they maintain this really great structure. Like I was saying before, they maintain tradition, and they do the saitis, which is just the dancing in a circle. It's called mariri, the women on one side, the men on the other, and you unite your voices so that the women come in a different part. Um, and then there's the instrumental part, which they've only had guitars now for about 16, 17 years. Shanehu, who's one of the chief's older sons, brought guitars over. So considering they've just started playing those instruments, they really know how to make it a celebratory thing. And they yell out, "So alegria." And then now they speak English and they say, "Only joy." And I just find that I've been doing this other shadow work in Colombia and others maybe in Peru, and it's beautiful. But now I'm doing like that was the cleansing part. Now I'm doing the nourishing. This is like bringing the happiness. And it's like, yeah, it's a party. And some people are like, you can't call an ayahuasca ceremony a party, but I'm like, this the Yawanawa do. And it's beautiful celebration with children, with elders. Tata was 103. He had possibly had dementia, and he just sang one song over and over, ah, Joe Berenja, and he would sing it continuously in ceremony, and they just let that happen, and I think that's great. And you can see him in the documentary with the staff. He just makes his way home by himself, and they don't treat him any differently. And that's what's cool. They don't treat the kids any differently, and the elders either. They might tend to them a little more, but in terms of in ceremony, everyone's equal and everyone's welcome, and the outsiders too. They don't treat they've quite embraced me. So I feel honored that I'm kind of being adopted into this community, and I've never felt excluded, and I've always felt welcome. And now I'm learning the language and the music as well. So it's really beautiful. I hope you can come one day.
I'm enticed to come down there. Now there's a scene in the documentary where a young boy is playing guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Stephanie and I were like, that is amazing. That's a seemingly a very young boy playing guitar, and the kids are there and they're singing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that one of the chief's children?
No, it's actually I think it's a little girl, and if I'm not mistaken, she's
Oops.
about 3 or 4 years old. But that's okay. The kids are very, everyone wears the same outfit. Actually, the ceremonial outfit is just the grass skirt. Men and women wear it. And yeah, that person, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I have to double check, but that's Antonella, and I'll send you the link of her now. She's a teenager and a great teacher. When I did my dietas, some of my music teachers were 12 years old, and I'm up there in age. And I was like, wow, I really wish I had lived in a society where they start singing as young as when they start talking, and they get an instrument. As soon as they can handle an instrument, they might not know, some do, but the chord names and stuff. But I loved learning that way. In fact, when I was 14, I started learning guitar, and I didn't like the structure and having to learn the chords. And it was just intuitive. They're just playing. you're watching, they're teaching you the language, the meaning of the words, and the rhythms. And the kids start picking up instruments 3, 4 years old, drumming as well as singing and dancing and all the traditions. They're doing the plant baths, the mud baths, all the different things at a very young age. And I believe uni ayahuasca helps open up those receptors so that you receive it a lot more. And I can speak for myself. I wasn't as receptive to singing and guitar. I hadn't played guitar since I was about 14, 15. And now, having had surgery on my wrist, I thought, well, this is a good way to have therapy. And I'm embarking on these dietas, and that's a big part of it. They teach you the saitis, or the songs, which are like mantras. And then they teach you the guitar part. And so, yeah, on ayahuasca too, because you drink sometimes during class, you drink medicine. And we had like the chief's daughter, Yawakana, she's like 12, serving us medicine and teaching us music. And I'm like, wow, this is incredible. So, yeah, it's awesome that they're starting them young. And I believe our society could approach things in a healthy way that way, not pushing them, but just letting children kind of make their own decisions and embark on things slowly and with the guidance of the adults. I think that's a very healthy way to do it.
Now, what exactly you talked about the dietas? What exactly is that? I at first I thought that was the specific diet, but
Mm-hmm.
it's more than that.
Yeah, it's an isolation where you're sometimes in a hut. Different tribes do it different ways. Sometimes they have like an area where people diet together, but everyone has their own space, and then they come together in ceremony. But really, it's more about going. It's sort of the South American equivalent of a vision quest, but instead of no food, no water for 4 days, you have minimal food. In some cases, we didn't have water, but we drank something called kaisuma, which was in our case a corn beverage. And if you go later in the year, it's a yucca beverage. And that was the mama dieta. So with the Yawanawa, there's a few different ones that you use to, it's, I would say, a rite of passage for to become a page in their case, but for shamanic learning, but also people who need healing in their lives. I've noticed people with addictions come and just be isolated in a dieta. So now a lot of people are using it this way. And it can be something like a phone addiction or just a food addiction or an addiction to bad thoughts. So any kind of tendency that's a repeating pattern in our lives, it gets you to step out of your normal life and then go into this hut or this area where you're away from your phone, away from other people, at least society. And, you get every tribe does it differently, but in our case, we got a language lesson every other day and a music lesson. And I can speak for the Yawanawa. I know the Shipibo are another common tribe that has a lot of dietas like bobinsana and tobacco. The Yawanawa have mama. Well, first kambo, which requires a 2 week dieta, but that one you're in the world. You're not isolated. You want to build your willpower by being exposed to things and remembering, oh, I can't eat this banana. But with mama, which is sort of like the next one, and they're not always done in this order, but mama's only a month, so it's one of the shorter ones. You don't drink water. You eat these little. You don't really drink much. The first 3 days, that time you can't have interaction with anyone. The page, in our case, Chief Nishiwaka, prayed us into the dieta. So we had uni. We had a beautiful ceremony in the center the night before. And then he instructed me very gently in whispers in my ear. He was like, tomorrow and the next 3 days, you can't have contact with anyone. You're going to stay in your hut. You can just go out to use the bathroom. And you're only going to drink a little bit of kaisuma, which was the corn beverage. And then after that, Naino will instruct you. And I saw him then the morning after. He waved as he left, and Nainoa came over, and he had instructed my teacher on every little step of what we were going to do. I was with my friend Jesus, and we had a beautiful time. But mostly it was just isolation the first 3 days, no water for the first 2 weeks. After that, we could have lemon water and then cinnamon tea and the acai juice, which was amazing because acai is one of the fruits with no sugar, so you could have that. passion fruit you could have, and cupuaçu, which is a tart fruit. So that's the mama dieta, and you eat very minimally after that. You just start eating little bigger and bigger balls of the banana plantain. I mean, it's not sweet, but a plantain mush. And then eventually you get like rice or veggies, but nothing salty, nothing sweet, no oil, obviously no sex or sexual thoughts. And you're supposed to connect with your dreams. And the Yawanawa have the mama, the nana, which is a black face paint, part of what inspired the Avatar movie because it sort of fades into blue. That one is 3 months, and you actually drink the nana, and it's like a very strong purge slash process you go through. And that one you're isolated for 3 months. They paint your whole body except kind of like your crotch area, but you're all black, and you stay in that black paint for the 3 months, and otherwise it's about the same rules. No, nothing sweet, no oil, no sex, and a lot of language, and less language lessons and music lessons. And then you have the muka, which is like their most sacred dieta. It's the longest. It's a year. um you drink kaisuma, no water in the beginning. It's up to you how long you want to do that dieta for, but it requires at least a minimum of a year. My teacher's brother, Peru, he stayed on it 8 years. And it's sort of like extra credit points. You're just in there, isolated, studying, and you're learning to make rapé. You're learning to connect with nature in that time. And then there's one called Yushi, which is a chili pepper dieta, which after that one's only a month as well. But in the Nova Esperanza, they only do that after the Mucadieta. And that's one that makes your words more powerful. So you can never say curse words again or lie or say anything weird, make things up, after that one. And then there's the Runa Dieta, which is the saliva of a snake. That's like the most initiated. Bhutani went through that. Yeah, that's very intense. And they just give you the saliva from a snake and then release the snake so that it's going to be your guide. It's a water boa. So it's like your spiritual guide for the rest of your life. And that's a very intense dieta. Many don't do that one. But those are most of the Yawanawa dietas, and that's what I know about. But different tribes do different ones. The Shipibo, the Hunikuan, different tribes do different dietas, and a lot of outsiders are going, especially with Benki, who's another tribe that's nearby. They do like retreats for people to go and do dietas for various reasons, not just for shamanic initiation, but also for just healing.
How many dietas have you done, and what's the longest one you've done?
I did this combo dieta like kapu dieta like 6 times, and then I did the mama, which was a month for me. That was the longest. So I'm just a baby. I just graduated kindergarten.
So you mentioned the rape. Tell us about that. It figures prominently in the documentary, and I know that it's a medicine that you are also well versed in.
Yeah, our hape is Yawanawa hape is traditionally made with tobacco, which is Nicotina rustica, and in their language it's called ruma. So ruma is their word for repe, and it's applied with either a tipi, which is a blower, or a kuripe, which I actually have a tipi here, which I'll show you. And so you can either like apply it to someone else in that form where you blow it into first one nostril, then the other. Or you can use your own self blower to apply it to yourself, which most people do it that way in the jungle. Out here, a lot of people like to get served because they might not know what they're doing or they want to learn, from someone else who's received it. But they're very careful of who gives you rapé because it's sort of like you're infusing all your knowledge into that person. So you have to have really good energy, even to give rapé. You have to clear your mind and do a lot of reaching the space of minimalism before you even serve it. And when you serve yourself, there's a more gentle blow that the Yawanawa have taught me to do, which is to respect it. But traditionally, it's made with Nicotina rustica and something called sunu, which is the bark of a tree that's made into ash, and about equal proportions sifted. Um, and yeah, you macerate the tobacco so until it's a fine powder, and then you add the ash, run it through sort of a strainer, and you apply it. Over there, they use it. Some people use it daily, and some people just use it like in ceremonies. It all depends. But I have noticed, apart from it clearing your mind, some people say it does work with the pineal gland. I think it just resets your whole brain. It's probably why people in prisons and mental facilities go to tobacco. Tobacco is a very sacred herb, but hape is one of the, if not the most ancestral way to work with tobacco. So it's not smoked over there so much. It's used this way as a powder through the nose, and you set prayers and intentions into it. So you communicate with the tobacco before you blow yourself. You can talk to it and sort of like ask it for specific things or healing. And if you're giving it, like I said, you have to clear your mind and not think of anything, but the person receiving can also intention it. So apart from the spiritual work and the connecting you, which they say, tobacco is the gateway herb that opens the door to many plants, and through Hape, I've understood that. It's also got a lot of physical uses, such as I call it a powdered neti pot, because people who have allergies really benefit from the sinus opening sensation. And the people who, like me, I live in Miami, and like in the Amazon, it's a very humid environment. So you want to always like have something, if not a neti pot, hape, do something to clear your sinuses because mold grows in the AC, and we're exposed to more things than in other places when you live in humid environments. So yeah, I find that it helps physically as well. People who live in drier climates have to be careful because they can start to get nosebleeds or dryness. So I always tell people be more moderate if you live in California or the desert or anywhere, that's not in a humid subtropical or tropical environment. But it's a beautiful medicine. It's really done a lot for helping reset my brain, and it helps relieve my allergies as well. So I'm grateful
Nice.
to have. Yeah.
Um, are there, so we've covered a lot of ground here, and I think it's great. In the description when we post this, I'll put that link to the documentary. I'd like to put that link to the essay that you wrote, if that is fine.
That would be great.
Is it is there anything else that you feel would be good to share? I've got a few more questions before we end, but this would be kind of an open space if I didn't cover anything specifically.
Mhm. Well, I would say no matter where you're from or what your ancestral lineage is, get in touch with your roots, and your music and the ways of your people. And it's a good time to. That's a good. I think that part of the healing in society that needs to happen is us finding our own traditions. And that being said, when embarking on these other traditions, remember to practice reciprocity, to always give back, not just to take, but to give back to those communities who are sharing their, some of these folks are very economically challenged. So really just really be mindful of who you sit with, because there's a lot of people mixing too many things. There's all these condor eagle ceremonies, having ayahuasca one day, then peyote, or people doing the kambufo, like kambo and then bufo. And it's like, I think that's like very disrespectful to those who hold these medicines and their traditional ways. So be mindful of who you sit with. When possible, go to the source. And if that's not possible, at least try to sit with someone who was raised in that tradition, and give back to those tribes, and just be really careful with people who are mixing too many things. Make sure things are ethically harvested. Um, and yeah, just communicate with the elders, really know that this is more than just the substances, that we're there. more as a cultural immersion. The substances, yeah, sure, they seduce us. They're like, hey, come over here. They bring us in and open up this new world, this new portal of seeing things in a different way. But once you've done that, there's music, which is tremendous medicine. There's the plant baths, the mud baths, the dietas, the initiatory rites of passage, and just the being in nature, like the nature immersion part of it, and the taking 2 or 3 weeks to be away from your normal life. It's worth sacrifice to, not even sacrifice, reward to everything that you're doing. Really immerse in the culture. Don't just look for the substances, and really give back and be aware of sort of fly by night pseudo shamans of today's society. Really go to the source whenever possible. Yeah, that would be my advice. And
Fabulous
find your own,
advice.
and find your own roots too, and share
Right.
that. They love it. They love the cultural exchange too.
So let me ask, is there a channel set up, like someone's going to listen to this and be like, how can I support these people? Like, well, I'm in my own mind, I'm like, wow, I'd like to make a donation and do something just as a thank you for you being able to have the knowledge you have and then sharing it through my channel. Is there something set up, or what
We
would
do
we
have a
do?
GoFundMe right now for the Wirarica project, the Wirarica tribe, also known as Huichol, the ones that are reclaiming that land that I spoke about in the Wirikuta is their sacred desert, and they also have like projects going on in Nayarit because there's 5 different areas where the tribe lives. So I'll send you that link. Thank you for sharing that. As far as with the Yawanawa, I've just been sending money kind of through, PayPal to their chief, to Iskunkwa. Not as an official GoFundMe or anything, just every so often we'll do like a fundraiser for a boat, or somebody gets sick in the village, and we'll do that. So as those things pop up, I'll send them. But really, the main way you can contribute is by going to their events, because for people to give a few hundred or $1,000, sometimes it's nice to just go and help them that way. To when they're having a retreat, they usually charge a couple $1,000, and that includes the boat ride, the hotel, the food, the all the things, the music lessons, the plant baths, the mud baths, and you can do or not do medicine. It's like they're open like that. You can partake or not. Either way, you're there immersing in the culture. So another way you can do a little reciprocity is to go to the retreats, and I'll keep you posted on those, not just mine, but
Excellent.
other people's. And yeah, basically that's the main way we do it. Is we have the GoFundMe for Virikuta, and then I bring people to different events when they come to the cities, like Iskunkwa or other Pages or Maracames. Go to their events, instead of hanging out at someone else's event who's trying to mix too many medicines and is not indigenous. Maybe consider sitting with someone who is indigenous, who's coming to your city, and connecting with them. So it's not just about the money you're giving them, but the things you're teaching and learning from each other. Because I find that is beautiful. Like, it's a beautiful exchange. They want to give not just their knowledge and their substances and their wisdom, but their vibe, and they're very warm people. And it's a good time to just learn to interact with them, even if they're just coming through your city. Always sit with like the indigenous traditional people if possible.
Excellent. Well, Claudia, it has been an honor truly for me to know you this many years and to watch. I know you lose contact over a certain amount of time and then you reconnect and all of this. And as I said in the beginning, you're you're an inspiration in how you've stayed true to what's really important to you, and I've never known you to do anything on the surface,
Mhm.
and personally inspiring to me. So I thank you for bringing this knowledge to us and being on the It's All Good show. I'm going to put you on the spot here. And I don't know if you saw it in the last message that we had before we connected here on the Zoom. But I
Mhm.
asked if it would be okay to ask you to share, for you personally, to read your poem that was part of that essay.
Oh,
Do you
shoot.
have? Oh, awesome.
I'll read it just for you, Mark.
Uh,
Yeah, I don't have it memorized, so let me get it from, I should memorize this. I actually wrote this on the way to Sacred Village, and it was such a beautiful ride. I was with these two amazing people who um, who were sharing the boat ride, and my friend Jesus. And we had this beautiful slow entry, very like chill. And even though the motor of the boat is like, we stopped and did rapé next to the river, and these thank goodness I had my little notebook on me, and and I had the opportunity to write this poem on the boat, and then I read it to everyone, and so I'll read it now. Um, and yeah, thank you for having me on this. I really love you, Mark, and all the work you're doing, and much respect to you and your tribe and your peeps and your family. So this one is called Tributaries of the Amazon. Rio Gregorio leads me towards the ancient wisdom of the Yawanawa tribe. Upon its clay-colored waters, the air fills my lungs with its thick, humid breath. We slowly snake down the river, mimicking the anaconda's slithering patterns. Drops splash us from above and below. As we avoid the driftwood and sandbars, vultures soar, showing off their majestic wingspan. While gliding in resonance with the Earth's magnetic field. The grass grows on layers of sand and clay. Birds nest, bird nests resemble baskets hanging from the tallest trees. The rain stops and the sun beats down its warm rays upon my skin. Small palm frond thatched roof huts peek from behind the foliage every so often as the children wave at us. Fluffy nebular skyscapes ahead of us and above. We descend upon the warm sand.
Claudia, thank you so much. Big love and respect to you.
Hausch, hausch. Much love.